Welcome back to the College Basketball Bracket Science YouTube channel, your encyclopedia for the college basketball season. Today we are talking Big Ten. This is 4 out of 5 of the power conferences that we are going to dissect all the way through, talking about power rankings, talking about the rosters for some of your favorite teams in these conferences. We're going to talk about our preseason All-Big Ten team. There is a serious case that the Big Ten, it might be the best conference in college basketball this year. Now, there are some bottom weight teams that we're going to talk about. They may have the best chance of any to get double-digit teams into the NCAA tournament this year. Obviously, the Big Ten and the SEC, which we will be talking about on the next show. So we've already talked about the Big East, the Big 12, and the ACC. So if you haven't already, go ahead back in our channel and check that out. We're also now available on Apple and Spotify podcasts, so be sure to hit those links below and subscribe to that in case you're on the go and can't get the the YouTube channel going. Also, before we dive into it, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button on the YouTube channel. We're close to 1,000 subscribers. That would really help us out. Keep it going here. Stay up to date on the college basketball world. Hit those post notifications. And then be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Bracket Science with 2 S's. It is starting to feel real. We have about 11 weeks left until the first day of college basketball. It'll be on November 3rd. We have some primetime matchups. We're going to have a show where we talk about all the biggest matchups in all of the non-con, and then obviously the conference schedules that have already been coming out through some of the media outlets. But we're going to be talking about some of the huge games, so be sure, once again, hit that like and subscribe. We'll be posting them on Instagram and TikTok. We'll have a separate show of just these massive matchups to talk about all the way through the non-con and even into conference play. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. Let's talk about our preseason power rankings in the Big Ten. Here we go. So what we're going to do in our layout today, you can see it's labeled 1 through 18. We're just going to give a little, brief description about some of these teams and, where they, their potential starting lineups, what their lineups look like. This is going to be according to John Rothstein over at College Hoops Today, also a great member of CBS. He has kind of a roster sheet. He's very accurate. He goes to a lot of the practices and, can kind of put together what the starting lineup might look like. So let's dive right into it, starting with number 1. No surprise here. It's Purdue. Purdue is the team to beat in the Big Ten this year, mainly because of returning Braden Smith, the All-American. And he's going to be the preseason player of the year in the Big Ten, no doubt about that. He is just an absolute beast of a passer of the basketball. He also brings back his, kind of their big 3 from last year. Fletcher Loyer is back, one of the best 3-point shooters in the entire country, as is Trey Kaufman-Renn, who averaged over 20 a game last year. So their big 3 is back from a Sweet 16 team last year. They also will probably incorporate CJ Cox into the starting lineup. Another great shooter, can play some solid defense on the other side of the ball as well. Then their one transfer that they brought in who should make a huge impact is Oscar Clough from South Dakota State. He was, a double-double machine at South Dakota State, now moving up to the Big Ten on a team that might be number 1 in the preseason AP poll. It's going to be a big jump for him, but I think he's going to fit in just fine. He's a big 6'10" body. They also returned Daniel Jacobson. Remember Daniel Jacobson from last year's team. He's another 7-footer, and he started off the season starting on this team before he had a season-ending injury. He's going to be back and will probably play a significant role this year. So they have 3 really solid bigs with Trey Kaufman-Renn, who will be a preseason All-American, Oscar Clough, one of the better transfers, and Daniel Jacobson. They also returned Jakari Harris and Raleigh Burgess coming off the bench this year. And they also brought in Liam Murphy from North Florida as another transfer. They didn't lose much. They lost Caleb First, Cam Heide, and Miles Colvin. Might be addition by subtraction, losing those 3 and, incorporating CJ Cox, who really started to jump up last year, along with Oscar Clough and Daniel Jacobson returning. Purdue is the team to beat in the Big Ten this upcoming season. Next up at number 2, Michigan. Now, before we dive into Michigan, let's talk about this real quick. Purdue is your clear-cut number 1. I think Michigan's your clear-cut number 2. 3 and 4, even throw 5, 6, 7 in there. So that's probably your tier 1 is Purdue. Your tier 2 is probably Michigan. Your next tier is UCLA, Illinois, Oregon, Wisconsin, Michigan State. You can kind of throw those in any order that you want. I kind of went based off of just these predictions are what I think they're going to be at the beginning of the year. This is not where I see them at the end of the year. This is what I see them at the beginning of the year. So this is kind of, 3 through 7, put them in any order. And then I think it's 8 through 13, put them in just about any order. And then it's 14, 15, flip those two. We'll talk about this more as we get into it. I know I'm kind of just babbling on. 16, 17, 18 are the clear bottom feeders of the Big Ten this year. So those are kind of your tiers for this upcoming year, but there is a clear separation from Purdue to Michigan. You'll see that in the preseason AP poll and probably Ken Pom rankings as well. Michigan brings back Roddy Gale and Amari Burnett. They also bring in some huge transfers, starting with Elliot Cadeau at the point guard position. He's iffy. Depends on what you think about him. He's clearly a talented guy, lightning fast, turns the ball over a lot, doesn't really have a shot, but he's lightning fast and can really pass the ball when needed. We'll see if Dusty May can take him under his wing and, really get him back into gear, showcase his talent. Michigan's big transfer was Yaxel Lendeborg, maybe the best transfer in the entire country. Just fits into this Dusty May system incredibly well. Remember last year, Dusty ran the two big lineup with Vlad Golden and Danny Wolf. Bringing in the Yaxel Lendeborg seems like the perfect fit to correlate with Morez Johnson or Ademara, depending on who fits in that starting lineup. Rothstein has it as Morez Johnson. I would also have it as Morez Johnson. So Yaxel Lendeborg and Morez Johnson, the transfer from Illinois, two just dynamic bigs. Yaxel Lendeborg has a case to be probably the second best player in the Big Ten behind Braden Smith, as we just talked about. Maybe even behind Trey Kaufman-Renn. But one of the top guys. He averaged 20 and 10 last year, I believe. Someone fact checked that. It was up there for a UAB team that was supposed to be real good, wasn't great. That's a little bit of the hesitation I have, is putting him as, the elite of the elite. He wasn't on a great team last year, and the team was supposed to be pretty good. So they had a good year the year before, made the NCAA tournament. Didn't do much last year, but he should. It's more about the fit going into Dusty May's system. We saw what he did with the bigs last year. He turned Danny Wolf into a borderline lottery pick. Bringing in Yaxel Lendeborg should be their big one. Morez Johnson, also a just bully you in the paint kind of guy. Ademar, we've kind of been waiting on. He was at UCLA last year, transfers in. Kind of been waiting on him to really pop off. He's 7'3", lengthy, just kind of swallows everything at the rim, can block anything, but hasn't really just popped yet. Can he do it in Dusty May's system? I think a lot of people are expecting him to. That's a pretty good position, but we will see. They also do bring back Will Shedder, who I'm kind of surprised he came back for another year. He's a bigger guy. He plays pretty much primarily the 4, can really shoot the 3, but they got a 4 big lineup that could be really good. All right, let's move on and talk about UCLA in the 3 spot. UCLA, their big one coming in, Donovan Dent, All-American last year from New Mexico, stays on the West Coast, goes to play for Mick Cronin. Mick Cronin has this guy. Mick Cronin used to, when he was at the top of towards the top of the sport, he always had that stud point guard. He has it now with Donovan Dent and an All-American. They also returned Sky Clark, who had a decent year last year. Remember UCLA? They won a game in March Madness, ended up getting beat in the round of 32. But Sky Clark, he came from Louisville. A lot of people were skeptical of him because they're like, he's not a winning player. He was pretty solid last year. He wasn't too bad, so he'll fit into that 2 spot. They also bring back Tyler Bilodeau, who was UCLA's best player last year. He'll be back, the former transfer from Oregon State. They bring back Eric Daly as well. Eric Daly has, shown some signs that he can be an elite player. And then they bring in Xavier Booker, the transfer from Michigan State, former highly regarded recruit. Hasn't really done much, was not great at Michigan State, barely even really played that much last year. But he's got, the physical capabilities. It's just if he can, really put it all together. So that puts together a pretty good starting 5. A lot of people I've seen UCLA as a top 10 team in their preseason rankings. I'm not quite there yet. Their starting 5 can go up against just about anyone. The depth isn't really all the way there. So you got this starting 5. You're going to need Xavier Booker to be good for this to be a truly, truly elite team. They got the point guard and Donovan Dent. He'll be your best player. Mick Cronin has a defensive identity. I'm a little curious to see how good this team will be defensively. And once again, a lot of that is going to rely on Xavier Booker. Can he shot block? Can he really be a big influence at the rim? But as mentioned, their defense is going to be their defense and their depth is going to be my main concern for this upcoming year. They also bring in Jamar Brown from Kansas City and Steven Jamirson from San Diego. We'll see if they can jump up a level, but they will be forced into, kind of just that role player role for this upcoming year. But UCLA looks to be, a top seed come March Madness yet again. At number 4, I have Illinois. Illinois, this might be a little bit of an unpopular opinion. Might see them slotted towards the 6-7 spot for most of them. I love this team's front court, and they also got some guys in the back court as well. Let's start in their front court. It's going to go through Tomislav Ivisic this year. He was unbelievable last year, one of the best passing bigs in the entire country. He kind of just flew under the radar last year. He was so good. They had Yakuchonis last year, who really, was in the spotlight quite a bit. But Ivisic coming back, I think he's going to be the guy this year. Ben Humikaris, or Hummerkaus, however it's pronounced. I've pronounced it wrong a million times. He was supposed to be, really slotted into a big role last year. Didn't really pop much last year. He played, but didn't really pop too much. He had some, he was kind of in and out of the lineup throughout the season. But if he can really step up and have a big role this year, that'll really help. They also brought in Tomislav Ivisic's brother, Zvonimir, formerly from Arkansas, was also at Kentucky, played for Calipari for a couple years. He'll be thrown back into, he'll probably be coming off the bench. I know he started primarily for Arkansas last year. He should be off the bench this year. So that core 3 is pretty good. That's, probably a top 10, 15 front court in the entire country. Their big transfer coming in this year was Andrej Stojakovic, the transfer from Cal. Really dynamic scorer, can really score the basketball. The question is, he just hasn't won anywhere. He was formerly at Cal, formerly at Stanford, just hasn't really won. So we'll see if he can, become that winner and become that guy. He's probably going to have to be the guy who, the offense can run through Tomislav, but Stojakovic is probably going to have to lead the team in scoring this year. So that's what we'll have to see. They also brought in Kylan Boswell. Kylan Boswell has been better than I expected. Kylan Boswell, at Arizona a couple years ago, I wasn't that much of a fan. Last year, he transferred to Illinois, and he was well. He had a good season, so I'm expecting a little bit more out of him this year. They also brought in Mihajlo Petrovic, who is another obviously foreign recruit. So they're really going the foreign route, as you can notice. Brad Underwood is kind of starting to build up that foundation, and that being their go-to thing, going to the foreign prospects. I've heard really good things. Haven't seen that much tape on him, but the tape I've seen, it looks really good. So that puts together a pretty solid starting 5. As we mentioned off the back, they're going to have Zvonimir Ivisic. Ty Rodgers is hurt right now. Should be a good team. I expect them to be towards the top of the, which has been pretty much where they've been for a long time coming. All right, next up on the list is the Oregon Ducks. Oregon with a very heavily up and down season last year. They won the first ever Players Era Festival last year. Really struggled down the stretch, kind of figured things out. I really compared their team last year to Wisconsin of the previous year, who had a tremendous non-conference, was looking like, a fringe 1, 2, 3 seed, and then kind of fell off and then figured it out at the end of the year. Oregon, they won a game in March Madness and then lost to, I believe, to Arizona in the round of 32. They bring back their core pieces. Their 2 best players of last year, Jackson Shelstad at the point guard position, and Nate Biddle, who really had a good year last year, really kind of, got in towards the, all conference / all American sort of category. He is back for another year. He's dealt with injuries in the past, but he is, he was healthy for the entire season last year. They also bring back KJ Evans. They bring in Devin Pryor from Texas and TK Simpkins from Elon, who will probably fill out the starting lineup there. They also bring in Sean Stewart. Not much of a fan of that pickup. He'll be a backup to Nate Biddle and Kwame Evans. He's from Ohio State last year. He didn't pop. He was a highly recruited guy, and he's just not that good, quite frankly. So he'll be thrown into there. So a little bit worried on the depth, but should be another good season for Dana Altman in the Oregon Ducks. Next up at number 6, let's talk about Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin is a team I want to get bold on. Now, I mentioned this is where I think I do these rankings going into the season. Wisconsin is always underrated, and I think this is too low. I don't think they're going to be number 6. I wanted to put them at number 5, but that trio coming back from Oregon, Shelstad, Biddle, and Evans, I think Wisconsin's going to be really good. I wouldn't be surprised if, this is another year where we underrate them, and they're going into the season. They're like, middle of the season, we're like, yeah, they are, the biggest competitor to Purdue. I wouldn't be surprised because I really like this roster. They bring in Nick Boyd from San Diego State, also previously played in the Final Four at Florida Atlantic. John Blackwell could very easily turn into being could lead the conference in scoring this year. John Blackwell is that good. He is he is what AJ Storr was 2 years ago, but better. He was great last year. He's going to be great again this year. They also bring in Andrew Rohde from Virginia, just a perfect fit in this Wisconsin system. Austin Rapp is transferring in from Portland. He'll probably fill in that 4 spot. And then Nolan Winter is going to be one of the breakout candidates for this upcoming season. Nolan Winter, know the name. He's going to be really good this year. So that starting lineup, I really like it. Sneaky good. Nick Boyd, Final Four experience. John Blackwell could lead the conference in scoring, and they have a solid center in Nolan Winter. Andrew Rohde, perfect fit. I think this team's going to be so much better than you think. They're going to climb up towards the top at some point. I'm confident saying that in the Big Ten. Now, I'm not saying they're going to finish second or third, but I do think they're going to continue to get better and better. This team is underrated. Watch out for Wisconsin. Last year, they had John Tanji, and losing him is going to be huge. Don't get me wrong, but I think John Blackwell is going to step in and just be absolutely fantastic as well. Just kind of a team I'm kind of just buying in on. Their depth is a little bit questionable. We'll see. They also brought in Elijah Gray from Temple. They have some, they have some freshmen that could, you probably need one of them to pop and be a solid contributor to this Wisconsin team for them to have the ceiling that we want. Their floor is always so high in the system. Greg Gard has done a tremendous job there. I'm excited about this Wisconsin team. I think they're going to be better than you think. And that is the reason I have them above Michigan State. Now, Michigan State, I got slotted in the 7 spot. This is going to be an unpopular pick. I didn't have them slotted real high last year, so I missed on them last year. They were really good. Tom Izzo did a fantastic job getting them to the Elite 8 last year. So they lose Jaden Akins. They lose Frankie Fiddler. They lose Trey Holloman. They lose Jace Richardson. So losing quite a bit. They bring back Jeremy Fears. They bring back Cohen Carr, who is just electric. My goodness, can that guy fly? Bring back Jackson Kohler, who should be, they're probably their leading scorer this year. They also bring back Carson Cooper, who I'm not high on. He is like, every time I watch him, I'm like, man, this guy is not good, but he fills a role. He does well filling a role coming off the bench last year. A little curious to see what he can do in this starting spot this year. Trey Fort will also probably fill in that 5th starting spot, the transfer from Samford. Their roster just doesn't look that great. I'm just buying into the system, buying into Tom Izzo. 2 years ago, was that 2 years ago or 3 years ago? They were preseason top 5 and really struggled, looked like they might miss the tournament. Then last year, I don't even think they were ranked in the preseason and then ended up being a 2 seed. And people were picking them to go to the Final Four, and it wasn't a bad pick. They made the Elite 8. They were really good last year. So I'm kind of a wait and see approach. I'm not a fan of this roster. However, I was not a fan of their roster last year, and it, ended up just being arguably the best coach team in the entire country last year. So we'll see. It's a wait and see thing about Michigan State. I got them slotted in at the 7 spot right now. All right, let's talk about my sleeper team for this upcoming season in the Big Ten. It is Maryland. Buzz Williams comes over to Maryland, and I'm not sure why this team is not getting much of not getting a lot of recognition. They bring in the transfer Miles Rice, the transfer from Indiana. Yeah, kind of on that disaster Indiana team last year, but he was previously at Washington State. The whole story where he, battled through cancer and came back and had a tremendous season, won a game for Washington State as a 7 seed 2 years ago, which just doesn't happen at Washington State. Miles Rice is a really good basketball player. They also bring in Isaiah Watts from Washington State. And then this is why I think that this Maryland team is going to be good. They bring in Solomon Washington, who follows Buzz Williams from Texas A&M to Maryland, along with Pharrell Payne, who transfers from Texas A&M to Maryland. I saw Texas A&M play a couple games last year in the Players Air Festival. I really followed them quite a bit last year. I'm not quite sure why. People forget Texas A&M was, what'd they end up last year? Were they a 4 seed? Yeah, they were a 4 seed and lost to Michigan in the round of 32. For a while, Texas A&M was in the spot of being like, they were in the conversation of being like a fringe 2-3 seed. They end up a 4 seed. That's tremendous. That means you're, close to being like a top 15 team in the country. They were really good last year. And I thought Wade Taylor, God, I was so tired of watching Wade Taylor just huck up threes and put his head down and throw shots up. He was good. Don't get me wrong, but oh man, it was just frustrating to watch. Miles Rice is going to be thrown into that role, and Miles Rice is a better passer than Wade Taylor is. Bringing back Solomon Washington, who, if you have not seen Solomon Washington play basketball, people should not be able to jump the way Solomon Washington can jump. He is a freak athlete. If he can develop a shot, he's an NBA player. I have no doubt saying that. He is a freak athlete. So they have Solomon Washington coming back. If he can develop a shot, and they really, even if he doesn't develop a shot, I think this team's floor is high with Miles Rice. He's going to score. Isaiah Watts, also a good player from Washington State. Pharrell Payne is a beast. Pharrell Payne, I think, is the best player on this Maryland team. Even with Miles Rice, even with Solomon Washington, I think Pharrell Payne is the best player on this team. He was really good last year. Tremendous rebounder, big body, can block shots. He is a beast down low. I like Pharrell Payne. They also bring in Elijah Saunders, the transfer from Virginia, also was previously at San Diego State, where he made a national championship game. He's a winner. I'm really in on Elijah Saunders. I think he's going to be great in this Maryland system. Their bench also has depth. They bring in Raquise Passmore, who was a former, freshman at Kansas, highly recruited guy. They bring in him, if he's playing a role player position, that's pretty good. They also bring in David Coit from Kansas. I know that Kansas team wasn't great last year, but David Coit showed signs, if he can come off the bench and back up Miles Rice and Isaiah Watts as a scoring option. I think this team could be good. I think this team could be really good. And I think this team could surprise some people and end up climbing up to, in that, 4 to 7 seed territory as as an at-large team. I think Maryland is going to be better than people expect. I think Buzz Williams did a great job putting together a roster, having a little bit of combination of his guys, some talented guys, and some guys that fit into his system well. So I'm looking forward to this Maryland team. A lot of people kind of sleeping on Maryland this year. I think they're going to be good. All right, next up, Ohio State at the number 9 spot. Ohio State, this, probably having them 9, 10, or 11th in your preseason rankings means they're a legitimate bubble team. This team has more talent than being a legitimate bubble team. This team is really talented. Bruce Thornton is back, could be a preseason All-Big Ten caliber player, also, in that preseason All-American caliber team. He's really good. John Mobley is also back from another year, will go into the season as one of the, highest thought of shooters in the entire country, knocked down a ton of shots last year. They also bring back Devin Royal, who, kind of plays that small ball forward role. That big three is probably top 10 in the country. That's about as good as you can, top 10. We'll say that. They also bring in Brandon Noel from Wright State, just down the road for Ohio State. And they bring in Christoph Tilley from Santa Clara. They also bring in another, kind of popular name, Joshua Jonwina from Baylor last year. They bring in Gabe Cupps from Indiana. So their big three is fantastic. Thornton, Mobley, Royal. That's really good. Noel, Tilley. I think Tilley will fit in well. We'll see about Noel. And, obviously they can throw in Joshua Jonwina instead of Noel. They lose Micah Parrish, Quez Glover, Michi Johnson, Evan Mahaffey, Aaron Bradshaw, Sean Stewart. I think losing a lot of these guys is, a benefit outside of probably Micah Parrish and Quez Glover. Michi Johnson didn't even play last year. He, I don't know that whole situation, but he's back at South Carolina for Lamont Paris this year. So losing a lot of these guys, I think, has helped. Get Sean Stewart out of there, get Aaron Bradshaw out of there, get Evan Mahaffey out of there. Quez Glover and Micah Parrish were pretty good players. So losing them, it's that big three that's going to really step up this year. My main concern is Jake Diebler. I'm not 100% sure. Every interview I see about Jake Diebler, he is a fantastic talker. He says all of the right things. I think in the future, he's going to be a good basketball coach. He's just not, in my opinion, an Ohio State basketball coach right now. Maybe he'll prove me wrong this year because you can tell he's just a hard worker. And like I said, he says all the right things. He seems to say the things. I just think executing them with the X's and O's, just hasn't quite been there. That team last year was so talented, and we saw them beat Kentucky by 20 last year. Then it just kind of, fell off, just weren't the greatest coach team. This is probably Jake Diebler's make it or break it year, and if I had to bet, I would say it's a break it year. I think next year Ohio State will have a new coach, but we will see. Maybe they climb into 6 seed territory, win 2 games in March Madness, and boom, there you go. There's job security right there. But I don't like the addition of Gabe Cupps. I don't think he's primarily from Ohio, so going back to Ohio State, kind of a hometown guy. I just don't think he's that good. He just doesn't look like a Division I player, in my opinion. We'll see what Brandon Noel can do with transferring up from Wright State from the Horizon League to Ohio State with the big boys. We know what the top 3 are going to do, as we mentioned, as I've said a million times: Thornton, Mobley, Royal. Christoph Tilley, I think, will fit, but it's just the rest, along with the combination of Jake Diebler being their coach. Not too optimistic about it, but we will see. All right, next up in the 10 spot, I have Iowa, coached by Ben McCollum this year. He's the up-and-coming coach this upcoming year. Before we dive into Iowa, let's talk about this. Here's a bold prediction. Kansas, I know we're randomly talking about Kansas in the Big 12. Roster doesn't look too great this year. Doesn't look bad. I'm optimistic about Kansas this upcoming year. I think Kansas is going to be really good. I think they're going to be better than people think. People, they're kind of in that 5 to 7 range in terms of the preseason Big 12 rankings. I think I had them 6th. So right there, but that's going into the season. I wouldn't be surprised if Darren Peterson and Florida Badunga pop off like crazy. However, Bill Self seems to be really having some serious health issues. And with him, I saw he went on the Rothstein podcast and he said, I'm not quite sure my health is going to, be able to let me coach into the 70s or when he turns 70. Now, he still has a lot of juice. He's a tremendous basketball coach. However, I think if Bill Self were to retire, what I would do if I'm Kansas, I'm not sure it really lines up with, with the system and how Kansas primarily plays. But Ben McCollum is the biggest up-and-coming star in all of college basketball. He has Midwest ties. He has Iowa ties. So would he ever leave? I'm not sure. He was tied to the Indiana job last year, ended up taking a job at home at Iowa. If that Kansas job opens, there's been 2 disappointing years in a row for Kansas. Bill Self will never get fired from Kansas or anything. He's awesome. He is absolutely awesome. He's a tremendous basketball coach. But if his health doesn't, stay up to par, Ben McCollum could be a huge recruit. Huge, huge go after kind of guy to come coach that Kansas program. He's won everywhere. I know it sounds crazy. This is just kind of what I've been thinking about lately with this Iowa team. So if you're Iowa, you kind of got to live in the glory days right now. This might be the best coach you ever have at Iowa, Ben McCollum. So we'll see what they do this year. But diving into Iowa, Bennett Sturtz is back and transfers with Ben McCollum to go to Iowa. He'll be a preseason All-Big Ten kind of guy. He was an All-American last year at Drake. He is awesome. He will be in the NBA one day. I have no doubt saying that. They also bring in Tavon Banks from Drake to follow Ben McCollum, and Bennett Sturtz will travel with them. Brendan Howson, who fits in beautifully in Ben McCollum's system, can knock down threes. Transfer from Kansas State, was also it's been a knockdown shooter for quite some time. They bring in Alvaro Figueres from Robert Morris. He was the Horizon League Player of the Year last year. Cam Minyawu, I believe is how it's pronounced. Also the transfer from Drake. So he's got some of his guys. He's got perfect guy in his system with Brendan Howson. He also brings in Fulgaris, who can, can he jump up the level? We will see. But with this and with the style that Iowa plays, I think Iowa is going to be good. I've seen some people ranking them like 14th or 15th in the Big Ten. I think that's kind of disrespectful to Ben McCollum, who's won everywhere. I think 10th might be disrespectful. I wouldn't be surprised if they're a top 7 team in the Big Ten. He wins no matter where he goes. Now, will this transfer up levels? I get the concern, but I think it's going to. He's just a natural winner. His system's great. I think his system fits in well at Iowa. Like I said, he's a hot commodity. So live in the glory days if you're Iowa right now, or offer him as much money as you can physically offer him because he is awesome. He is an awesome basketball coach. All right, next up, let's talk about USC. I have in the 11 spot, also kind of, on the bubble. USC, they obviously had some more money coming around this upcoming year. Now, I had USC at number 9 until the Elijah Arenas injury, where he's going to be out. So I ended up bumping them back. They don't really have a true point guard. Jordan Marsh will probably be forced into their point guard position. The transfer from UNC Asheville. Rodney Rice transfers in from Maryland. Chad Baker-Mazara, who is 26, I believe. Yes, he is still in college basketball. Will probably be their best player this year. Transfer from Auburn, obviously. Ezra Alser, the transfer from Utah, and then Jacob Coffey, the transfer from Virginia. So transfer heavy lineup, a lot of talent. Rodney Rice, kind of proven guys as well. Chad Baker-Mazara, obviously. Rodney Rice, Jordan Marsh, great player. The loss of Elijah Arenas really hurts, which is why I did really have to move them down. But this USC team should be a lot better than next year and should be fighting for an NCAA tournament berth. All right, next up is Washington. Washington also has a ton of money to give out under Coach Danny Sprinkle. They bring in most notably Desmond Claude is coming from USC, as is Wesley Yates. Wesley Yates was previously at Washington, then transferred to USC. Now back to Washington. Outside of that, I'm not really that optimistic about the roster, quite frankly. Kumari Peterson transfers from ETSU, East Tennessee State. He'll probably be put in that starting point guard role. Lathan Somerville transfers from Rutgers. We saw what Rutgers was last year outside of Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. They didn't have much, so he'll be, not quite sure about that pickup. And then Jacob Ignacevic from Lipscomb. I think he might fit in better than some people think. I know he's transferring up from Lipscomb, but I think he might be better than people think. I think Washington is going to be a middle of the pack Big Ten team this upcoming year. They also bring in Bryson Tucker from Indiana. They also bring back Zoom Diallo, who was a highly thought of player. So they've got depth. A little worried about the starting five, but we'll see. I think this team's going to be much better than you might think. All right, next up, Indiana. Indiana has all the money in the world. Heck, quite frankly, I don't really like their roster that much. They have Tucker DeVries coming back from the injury. They brought in Lamar Wilkerson from Cal, who is a just tremendous, Lamar Wilkerson from Sam Houston State, a tremendous shooter. They bring in Josiah Miles, the transfer from North Florida. They bring in Tate Connerway, transfer from Troy. Noticing a theme here. Yeah, a lot of mid-major guys transferring up outside of Tucker DeVries. A lot of, mid-major all-star guys. Connor Enright comes in from DePaul on a DePaul team who was, he was previously a mid-major all-star, went to DePaul, who was kind of a mid-major all-star team last year, and now he's transferring up even more. Bring in Sam Alexis from Florida, who didn't play a role in that national championship team last year, quite frankly. Not my favorite player. I don't think he's, that awesome, but we'll see if he can, take a big step here. Darian DeVries is a tremendous coach. I think he's going to be a good fit at Indiana. However, this roster this year, I'm not too optimistic on. So we'll see what if it all kind of comes together. They also have Reed Bailey, the transfer from Davidson. He should fit in better than the others, in my opinion. So that, the trio of Reed Bailey, Tucker DeVries, and Lamar Wilkerson could be something, but not 100% optimistic about it. I think it's the 13th, best roster in the Big Ten, but we'll see what Indiana can be. If, they can get into the tournament this year, that would be a successful season under Darian DeVries in year one. All right, next up, I got Nebraska in the 14 spot under Coach Fred Hoiberg. They bring back Rank Mast, who is going to be fun to watch. I'm so glad to see him back in college basketball again this year. They also have a nice influx of transfers here. Price Sanford from Iowa, not Peyton Sanford. His brother, Price Sanford, not as good as Peyton Sanford, but, decent player. Connor Esigian is back for another year, formerly at Wisconsin, I think. Was that a couple years ago he was at Wisconsin? DeMarcus Lawrence also transfers in from Rhode Island. They bring in Burke Boyonctical, I believe is how it's pronounced. I believe he was on their roster last year. I don't really recognize the name too well, but Rank Mast is going to be the guy. He is a tremendous passing big, and they have shooters around him with Connor Esigian and Price Sanford. So with Rank Mast and passing around this, I think they're lacking just like one stud guard. If they had one stud guard, this would be a pretty solid roster. I think this roster is better than people are going to think. I think they're going to be better than you might think, but they're definitely slotted in towards the bottom of the Big Ten right now. Next up at number 15, I have Northwestern. Northwestern will be highlighted by Nick Martinelli, who is a 20-point per game scorer, back for another year. Rest of the team looks a little iffy. Jaden Reed, KJ Wyndham, Trey Singleton, and Arrington Page. Probably filling out your starting lineup, at least according to John Rothstein. Arrington Page being the only one with high major experience. He was at Cincinnati last year. Wasn't even really a factor on a pretty bad Cincinnati team last year. So this roster is looking a little iffy. Next up is Minnesota from, moving on to, my God, his name is blanking me, the coach at Colorado State from the previous couple years, Nico Medved. There we go. His name was blanking me. He's a tremendous basketball coach. He did a great job at Colorado State the past couple of years. Roster looks bleak, does not look great. They bring in Cade Tyson from North Carolina, who was, incredibly bad last year. He was great at Belmont, though, so we'll see what he can do going to Minnesota this year. The rest of the roster, Isaac Asuma, Chancey Willis, Jalen Crocker Johnson, Robert Viola. That's your potential starting lineup. Doesn't look good. Coming off the bench, they also have BJ Omot, who BJ Omot was at Cal last year, I believe. Jalen Crocker Johnson is kind of the name to know outside of Cade Tyson. He follows Nico Medved to Colorado State, or excuse me, from Colorado State to this Minnesota team. So he knows the system. He'll probably be their best player this year, but yeah, their roster does not look too great. Next up is Rutgers. Yeah, roster does not look good. Their roster looked good last year. They were 25th in the preseason AP poll. Did not do well, and their roster does not look good this year, but maybe they can get back to, some Steve Peichel, at least back to his repertoire and what he does well. JaMychal Davis is back for another year. Darren Buchanan, Heron Zerno, Dylan Grant, and Emmanuel Ogboli. Roster just doesn't look good at all. They also they brought in Bay Fall from Kansas State, who might make an impact. Roster just doesn't look good at all. I think 16 is definitely Minnesota, 17 is definitely Rutgers, and 18 is Penn State, whose roster just looks horrible. My goodness. Freddie DeLeon is back for another year. They bring in Josh Reed from Cincinnati. Yeah, don't recognize the name. Yeah, most people don't. He did not play a role last year. Caden Mingo, the freshman, should be forced into the starting lineup. Ivan Zurich. And then Josh Reed should fill out their we talked about Josh Reed. Eli Rice should fill out their their starting lineup. This roster looks rough. Freddie DeLeon might be their best player this year, is probably what would be projected. But yeah, they lost everyone. Ace Baldwin, they lost Niederhauser to the NBA, Puff Johnson, Zach Hicks, Nick Kern, DeMarco Dunn. Yeah, this roster is bad. Penn State is really struggling, it looks like, in the money department in terms of matching up to the Big Ten. But hey, it looks like they have a pretty good football team. So we will see what they do this year in the football season, because the basketball season not looking too good. Alrighty, that is going to do it for the power rankings. I know we talked for a while there. Hopefully you stuck with me. Gonna be a fun season in the Big Ten. If I had to guess, I would say 9 to 11 teams from the Big Ten get into the NCAA tournament this year, which is really good. I think the top half is really good. Purdue, the clear-cut favorite. They might be I believe in the betting markets right now, they're the favorite to win the national championship. So you have a top dog. You have another, set of really good teams. So Big Ten should be at the top with the SEC this year in the final Ken Palm ranks for conferences. All right, let's talk about our first team, all Big Ten in the preseason. No surprise here. Braden Smith, definitely thrown into here. Now, this, I will say, this is the worst I felt leaving a couple players off. So if you don't see them, I put them at the bottom. Said, feel horrible about leaving these guys off because they could very easily be on here. The reason I went with these 5 guys is because, quite frankly, they were All-Americans last year, and I think you got to give them credit for that. Now, I'm not saying John Blackwell and Nick Martinelli are going to be awesome, because I think they are, but I just gave the benefit of the doubt to the All-Americans last year. So Bennett Sturtz, who was an All-American at Drake last year, coming to Iowa in Ben McCollum's system. Donovan Dent coming to UCLA will have the keys to the kingdom. Yaxel Lendeborg will be awesome at Michigan. And then Trey Kaufman-Renn coming back from averaging 20 a game last year. We mentioned Nick Martinelli in our honorable mention spot here. He averaged 20 a game last year, probably will again this year for Northwestern. It's just their team's not going to be as good. John Blackwell might also average 20 a game this year. And then Bruce Thornton from Ohio State is probably the most underrated player in all of college basketball. So he'll look to have another great year. There's numerous other guys, but these are the 3 that I felt the worst about leaving off. Going to be a fun year in the Big Ten. Can't wait to see these home court environments. Can't wait to see these, they got some stars. They have some stars this year. Alrighty, that'll do it. That is the preseason Big Ten podcast. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. I'd love to know what you guys think of our rankings and what your rankings would be. Do you not have Purdue at number 1? I highly doubt it. I think they are highly regarded as, maybe not just the team to beat in the Big Ten, but maybe the team to beat in the country between them and Houston this upcoming season. The middle of the pack, as we mentioned, is about as, flippy floppy as you can make it. Anyone could be slotted into, those spots, but there's going to be that surprise team. My sleeper team is Maryland. I think Maryland's going to surprise some people this year. Anyways, thanks to everyone for tuning in. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, turn on those post notifications so you stay up to date in the college basketball world, and then follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Bracket Science with 2 S's. Click the links below for Apple and Spotify if you like to listen on the go. Listen to me yap for a while. Be sure to do that, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks where we are talking about the SEC. We'll talk about the best conference we've ever seen last season. Will they repeat it this season? We'll talk about all of that in a couple weeks. Be sure to come back and check us out. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Have a great rest of the week. Ball is coming. We'll see you soon.